Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, happy Saturday afternoon. I am going to wolf down all this celery for you know what reason, and so please continue praying for me by leaving a dislike on this video. 3, 2, 1, go. A little bit of history on how I started wolfing the celery. I've never been a big fan of eating celery until in 2011. I was traveling in Boston, Massachusetts for a conference. Going to school in Rochester at the time. That first day of the conference, there was a girl there that I wanted to make a move on. So I went back to my hotel and I did some reading, some pickup lines, and then I discovered that celery apparently has this chemical that makes guys smell attractive to girls. It was already midnight, 1 o'clock, and I decided I still had to go out to get the celery. I wolfed down way more than I could handle, and instead I spent part of the night worshiping the porcelain god. The next day, got to the conference hall a little bit early, and I was thinking about when the girl shows up to sit down next to her and use some of the pickup lines that I had learned the night before. Long story short, I got some steam out of it. Didn't go anywhere. Actually, part of the problem is that she wanted to have children, and I was nowhere. And to this day, I'm nowhere near ready to want children, which is why I need to keep my body young, right? Which celery also does a pretty good job at doing, right? Now, last December, my friend at church set me up on a blind date, and for a week leading up to it, I've learned you don't need to start eating the celery too, where it doesn't really stay on your body all that long. And so the week leading up to the blind date, I wolfed down about 50 pounds of celery, and you guys know the rest is history. Now, unfortunately, I had a lot of turbulence with all the relationships I've been involved in since then. And so I've been eating a lot of celery. But it's also causing its own problem because I fill up on celery. Well, if you're just tuning in, I'm going to wolf down 2 pounds of celery for you know what reason. But last spring, I was eating so much celery, it was depressing me because I was filling up and not having room for all my other favorite foods. And I was depressed. And so I the depression probably also contributed, but I lost a lot of weight because I was eating celery, no room for anything with actual calories in it. And then the depression probably contributed to, I lost about 10, 15 pounds out of not that many pounds that I was already at, right? But one of my students at the community college, you got to understand it's a community college, you got a lot of returning students. She was in her 40s, and she commented on how much weight I had lost, and I explained to her the celery and how and the how it has chemicals that helps guys smell attractive to girls, and she told me that was a bunch of bullshit. Now, as she's telling me this, I realized that Wait a minute. She just sat in the office talking to me for 20 minutes about other stuff, almost like magnetically attracted to me, and she's telling me the celery attracting girls is bullshit. I almost wanted to point that out to her, but she was only interested in the fact that I had lost a lot of weight from doing it. This goes to show how tunnel vision some people can be with their thoughts. So I got a lot of good rapport with all that. That's not an unusual situation that I have with students. I get a lot of rapport and have this personal connection. Um, but it's never let me down. It's the celery, that is. If nothing else, when I wolf down the celery before I go out and nothing turns of the date, I mean, last I checked, celery's good for you anyway. Unless you're really gorging on it, there are probably not that many bad side effects. And at least I won't regret what would have happened had I just eaten the celery, right? It's not very expensive either. It's not like you got to spend a fortune, right? So please continue praying for me by singing, gesturing, and disliking the video. You know, other people say what? Like, share, and subscribe. For me, it's sing, gesture, and dislike, right? Please sing, gesture, and dislike. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. The Peter is like show. So I was reading on the news that because of Doge, they're going to start clawing back Social Security overpayments. So the people who are collecting Social Security on behalf of their 200-year-old relatives are going to have their own Social Security cut by 50%. And now a lot of people are panicking about that. I had a dream about that one night, actually. You know, we were hearing about 200-year-olds collecting Social Security, and this was around the time of the tariffs as well. I dreamt that Mary Curry was up in heaven cashing her Social Security check. I don't know if Poland's also suffering from that problem, or France, because she moved there, is also suffering from that problem. But I dreamt that Mary Curry was up in heaven cashing Social Security checks in order to buy bismuth because polonium is now made from bismuth. And she was building her own nuclear reactor. And because of Doge, her Social Security was cut off. And now, because of the tariffs, she can't buy bismuth either. She was just so depressed. I had a dream about that one night. I do a lot of deep thinking when I dream, so sometimes my dreams get a little bit detailed like that. That much left to go. By the way, um, I I don't know what to ask for anymore. When I ask for likes, I get more dislikes, and vice versa. And apologies if I'm looking the wrong way. I got to respond to a couple Instagram messages here. If you're just tuning in, I'm wolfing down 2 pounds of celery for you know what reason. It's a performance enhancing drug for a particular kind of sport. And I ask that you also pray that I win at this sport by hitting the you know what button on your screen. I'm working on a Lego build of there's a city in Alaska that has one building that houses the entire population. It literally contains all sorts of services: schools, hospitals, post offices, even the government office, the mayor's office apparently is in there. So 4,600 pieces on that build so far. So one of the best moments of this year was 3 months ago when I got vindicated on something. What had happened was that I started dating very late in my life. I didn't have a high school sweetheart, and that always burned me. And I to the point that I almost felt embarrassed. I haven't gone to any of my high school reunions. Even when I started dating again, I felt inferior almost, and I thought I would never get that opportunity back again until this past year. I teach at a community college, and last year I had a 15-year-old student. She was still in high school taking classes part time, and she pivoted her major now. I hope to bring her back into the computer programming world. But I got good rapport with all my students, just like the student who ended up eating a lot of celery, just like me. I get good rapport with all of my students, and I was telling her about my relationship with myself and all that. And she thought that was silly, and she said, "Don't do that. You can go out with me instead." And long story short, I didn't have a high school sweetheart, but instead I get to be somebody's high school sweetheart 20 years later. And I went to her graduation, and I don't think anything's going to turn of it. I'm probably more likely to find a rare coin worth a few $1 million than to end up marrying her. Let's put it that way. But I'll enjoy it while it's going on. Did you go to high school in the U.S.? Yeah, of course, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now the girl, she wants to come to my high school reunion. I'm tempted to do that because I want to redeem myself after all this time. And the analogy I like to give is imagine you fell behind on your taxes, right? Years and years of unpaid taxes, and you're constantly watching your back. You know, you have to hide your money. Maybe not, hide it in Switzerland or go buy some bismuth bars and put it under your bed. And it's bismuth so that it's not worth it for the IRS agent to break into your door. Right? You don't want to buy gold and silver, right? Hide it in bismuth bars under your bed. Hide it in Switzerland probably isn't even safe anymore, right? Hide it in some kind of African country that nobody would touch, right? And then all of a sudden, something happens that allows you to pay off 20 years worth of tax debt. You call the IRS, hey, you know what? I got all the money, the taxes, 20 years of penalties and interest, and you just mail a big check and it's all gone. You get your passport back, no more agents chasing you. Now you can take all that bismuth you've been hiding and actually put it to good use, right? That's how it felt when I went out with that girl. It really felt like that. I don't leave a comment. Was that a good analogy? My dad was so upset. I was at my grandmother's funeral 6 months ago. My grandmother was born in early 1934, just before Mary Curry passed away. So the two of them coexisted here on Earth for 6 months. So I went up to the casket. I asked my grandmother, when she makes it to the other side, to ask Mary Curry to set me up on a blind date with one of her descendants. And Mary Curry discovered polonium-210. Polonium is now made from bismuth, if you could believe it. So I left a small piece of bismuth in the casket, about half a pound, and the casket was cremated. And so apparently in her urn, which is about the size of a paint can, there might be like a crystal of bismuth in there. The temperature for cremation is not quite high enough to boil the bismuth away. I thought that was what was going to happen, but it's not quite that high. And I looked it up. So there's a crystal in that urn. And when I got back to the hotel, for some reason that I still cannot completely explain, I felt compelled to reopen a Bumble account that I hadn't used in 4 years. The last time I used that Bumble account, Trump was also president, and now Trump is president again. I missed the entire Biden term. When I looked at the account, I was aghast at what I had written all those years ago. I used to be really gung ho about my computer programming, about my stargazing. I had photos of Mars and Jupiter coming into conjunction in March of 2020. I didn't have the Great Conjunction yet. I gave up the account just before that, apparently. But I was aghast. I was also considerably heavier than I was because I wasn't eating celery. I was binge eating on other stuff. I got to be careful with celery too. I get addicted to everything that I eat. So, although celery addiction might not be that harmful, it's but you got to understand, food addiction isn't just about I'm going to be overweight or type 2 diabetes or heart attacks. No, that's only half of food addiction. The other part is the psychology and the social aspect of it. If you're tied to your food when you need to be working or you're not sleeping right because you're eating all night, people forget about that piece of the equation. But I I I'm just about to go see the girl that I met on Bumble last time. But in between that, there were a few other interesting sagas as well. See, I asked my grandmother to talk to Mary Curry to have her set me up on a blind date with her descendants. And let's count how many. There was the girl from Houston. She's only one quarter Polish. We didn't hit it big, but she gave me a lot of advice on what to do with the girl in Taiwan. The Taiwanese girl probably isn't very close to Mary Curry at all, right? Uh, but And then there was a girl at a book club. I call her Eve Curry because she's Polish and French, just like the real Eve Curry, and she likes literature. She's working on her own novel. Now, Eve Curry has a lot of anxiety, and so she was really late showing up. We were going to go see a movie, but she showed up like over an hour late, and I was sitting in the lobby of the movie theater when I decided to read about the actual Eve Curry. And that's when I discovered that her niece, Helene, is still alive, 97 years old. And I decided to email her, and the rest is history. Yeah. Now, while talking to Helene, I got inspired to, I'm a Lego artist, and I got inspired to build a monument in Poland. And that's when I decided to contact Polish Idol second place winner Ewelina Falenta. She's a singer, but she loves uh, physical art as well. And I often think of Ewelina Falenta as a reincarnation of Mary Curry. And the reason I think of it that way is when war was breaking out in Ukraine and she was volunteering with that stuff, it kind of reminded me of when Mary Curry was taking her X-ray machines around the battlefields in World War One. It had a similar vibe, and both times there were pandemics going on. Right? So there were a lot of parallels between those two scenes. Right? So that was a really successful ask. Um, Even though my dad was so upset, he literally was about to drag me out of that funeral hall. He really was. He was that upset. But you know what happened? The other day I told him about all of these wishes coming to pass. He can't remember. He was so upset. It's like he rewrote his memory. Now that with all of these positive experiences, he thinks it was a good idea that I asked. Yeah, he didn't think it at that time. That's the funny thing about it. How much you got there? Still quite a bit. But I gotta be careful not to eat so much that I end up worshiping the porcelain god, or it will be all for naught, right? So there's a tight balance. Now, can you imagine if I really do hit it big with either Helene or with Evelina Falenta after that ask, right? Then we need to go get that bismuth crystal out of my grandmother's casket because that's going to be legendary, and it might be worth a fortune then, right?
How are you? Oh, yeah. A little bit. Yeah, for sure. I appreciate our Croatian-Russian treaty we had last night. Oh, yeah. Good times. Oh, yeah?
Hey, change your like to a dislike. Whoever did that.
Yeah.
Are you at a celery bar? No, just at my hostel. Hey, whoever left a like, could you please, please, please change it to a dislike? All right, I'm giving you 10 seconds. If you don't change that like to a dislike, I'm turning off my stream. 10, 9, 8. No! 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.